Alright, so for this video, we are going to do Daniel Day Kim, and we are going to see what he will be ranked. Alright, now before I start, I just want to say that if you want to get your face analyzed, make sure to hit me. My IG will be down in the description, and then after that, I will give you the instructions on what to do. And then from there, between 2 to 3 days, you should get your face rating. As easy as that. Alright, so his overall facial rating is a 5.5. How rare is that? That is 1 in 2.68 people. The percentage of people is a top 37 percentile. His side facial score is a 51%. His front is a 31%. His total facial harmony is a 39%. His facial dimorphism is a 2. His body fat factors is a 9.5. And his miscellaneous features is an 8. Now we got the tier list to the right side. Tier 1 is ideal. Tier 2 is near ideal. Tier 3 is normal. Tier 4 is slight flaw. Tier 5 is a flaw. Tier 6 is a huge flaw. And Tier 7 breaks harmony. Now for his overall facial assessment breakdown, I'm going to start off with the worst features. So he has narrow eyes, sparse eyebrows, high set eyebrows. His eyes are too close set. His forehead is recessed. His nose lacks angularity. Now the best features is he has wide lower third, prominent cheekbones, great chin projection, good facial convexity overall, perfect lip alignment, and then he also has a sharp jaw. Now I'm going to go straight to the measurements. I'm not going to do every single one. I'm going to do just some of them. And I'm going to do the ones that I feel like are the most necessary to do, I guess you can say, and the ones that apply the most for him. So his eye aspect ratio is a tier 5 and his is at 4.88. Now what this means is that he has extremely narrowed eyes. I believe this one is probably the most narrowed eyes I've yet rated. I think Neymar is kind of similar to his. Neymar's eyes are really narrow as well. Yes, men do have narrow eyes, but it's to a point to where how narrow can it be? Having eyes that are this narrow is going to be a big flaw, and you don't want that at all. And this is also a racial thing as well. I'm going to explain it a bit later, but yeah, you don't want to have eyes that are too narrow as well. So that can affect your rating. His eyebrow settingness is at a 2.66. This will put him at a tier 6. Now his eyes are really narrow, like I said, in terms of height, but the height between the actual eye or the pupils and the distance between the eyebrows are extremely long, right? So the distance is pretty high, and that eye aspect distance is being divided by that blue line that y'all see stretching from the pupils all the way to the eyebrows. And when you divide it, you get 2.66, which is extremely high. And really for a man, you want to get really below like a 70 at least, or 0.70, and his is at a 2.66. So that is at the other extreme end of it. So he does have eyebrows that are not lower set at all, and this is not good because this can also stretch out your face and make your face look or appear more elongated and less dominant. And this is one of the reasons why his masculinity points, right, his facial dimorphism, his masculinity points are very low. And another thing too, I wanted to talk about it later on in the video, but I'm gonna just talk about it now. One thing that I noticed between races, and I'm gonna talk specifically about black men and Asian men, is that one thing that I noticed when rating these celebrities is that Asian men, and I'm talking about the good looking ones, right, or the ones that are perceived to be attractive by women, right, they have low facial dimorphism, so they have less masculinized faces on average. But black men are the opposite. Black men have more masculinized faces on average. So that's one of the differences that I've seen. Now, don't get me wrong, both of them are, and I'm talking about the celebrities of the Asian men and the black men. Both of them are perceived to be attractive, but I'm just talking about in respect to dimorphism. There is somewhat of a big difference between sexual dimorphism between the two races that I've noticed, and the white men probably fall in between them. So yeah. All right. So another thing that I noticed, which is kind of strange, is that he doesn't look that old for his age. Now he is around 55 years of age, and just by looking at him, he doesn't really look too old. Usually you'll see a whole bunch of lines. All I see is nasolabial lines, and that is these lines over here. And those lines are a sign of aging, but I I even seen younger people with lines that are more prominent than his anyway. And then I don't really see any hairline recession at all. It still has, somewhat of an angularity with it between the edges right here. And yeah. So I also took points away from his eyebrow density. His eyebrows are not really dense enough, believe it or not. And then I also talked about his eye aspect ratio. So the width is long, but the height is very short. Now, if the height is really short, that is not going to just affect one measurement. It's also going to affect multiple measurements as well. And another thing too is that I'm going to get to it as well, but one thing too is that he has very prominent cheekbones. So his cheekbones are extremely prominent. And that also affects another measurement that I will talk about later. But it's a good thing to have prominent cheekbones that kind of like pop out. Usually with male faces or Asian male faces, the cheekbones kind of pop out more forward grown. It's like more forward grown instead of more grown like towards the side. Is kind of like grows towards like the ends. I don't know how to really explain it, but it kind of shoots out. And when it does that, it makes their face look a little bit more rounded. So that's why Asian people tend to have kind of like a rounded sort of face. But for him, he does have a shorter head size, something like that. And it's also due to the jaw and the cheekbones and all that other stuff. And he also is low body fat. That's why you can kind of see the OG curve coming in around here. And what else? Oh, and with the prominent cheekbones, even though he has prominent cheekbones, his cheekbone height settiness isn't really too high. It's around like mid. It's like mid set. It's not really high set. It's not low, but it's not high across the mid face ratio. So this is usually like the distance between it. And the cheekbone high settiness is around the mids here. So it's not bad and it's not good, but you really want it to be more higher set to give it more of a Model X type of look that you're trying to achieve. But it's not really that bad at all, honestly. So yeah. All right. So like I said, with his prominent cheekbones, his total facial height width ratio is 1.31. And this will be an ideal for a female, but for male, this is going to be a little bit too small. So he does have a shorter head, and you won't really notice this until you probably see this guy in person. And you'll probably be like, yo, this guy's head is a little bit on the shorter side. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a short head. But like I said, for men, we usually have just longer heads in general. And it's probably due to the length of our forehead, the length of our midface, and also we have longer chins on average. So those things do add up to a longer head shape overall. The jaw frontal angle is a tier 4 at 105 degrees. Now he does have a very, very wide jaw. And another thing that I've noticed is he does have a long chin with a short philtrum. But even though he has a long chin, his jaw is still flat. So what that tells me is, and we're going to get to that later on with the mandibular plane angle, I think it has something to do with the mandibular plane angle. Because usually with a flat jaw is usually two things, or with a wide jaw frontal angle is usually comes down to two things. It comes down to the mandibular plane angle, and it also comes down to the how wide the jaw is as well. So the bigonial width. Those are the two main things that can determine your jaw frontal angle too. So that's why a lot of these measurements kind of like combine with each other too. So if one measurement is bad, some other measurements might be bad as well. So They just are injunction in that form. All right, speaking of the jaw width, his bigonial width is 91%. So it's still ideal, but this is at the higher end. Now we got to remember too, he has a very, very wide jaw, but remember his cheekbones are just as wide. So even though his jaw is wide, his cheekbones are wide. So imagine if he didn't have wide cheekbones. Imagine how wide his jaw really would be for his head. So his cheekbones does kind of help him in this aspect as well, but for the overall head to height width, like I just illustrated before, it kind of just supplements, like, so it kind of makes some measurements good, but it also detracts from some other measurements. So it's also it can be a plus and it can be a minus to have very protrusive cheekbones. But yeah, so if he didn't have very protrusive cheekbones, this measurement probably wouldn't be ideal. But since he does have it, it is. But he does have a very, very wide jaw. This is at the other end of it. So give it like 2 more percentages and it'll probably be like a tier 2 or something like that. But yes, his lower third is extremely wide. His bitemporal width is a tier 2, nothing too serious, at 81%. And this can suit a female, but for a male, no. Usually for a male, we have wider bitemporal widths, wider heads. And his is pretty wide, but like I said again, with the cheekbones being very prominent, it has to kind of supplement it. So it has to be a little bit more wider to kind of supplement him for having wide cheekbones. So like I said, having wide cheekbones can be a good thing, but it also can be a negative thing as well. So it's kind of like I'm trying to just figure it out, but it's like a chain reaction. Like, it's crazy how like one good thing can lead up to another bad thing sometimes, and one bad thing can lead up to another good thing. So yeah, so the cheekbones are the really tricky part of his face in the front view profile. So yeah. All right, looking at the side view profile, what we can see is that he has a lot of brow bossing. Now, the only person I can think of that has this much brow bossing is maybe like Mike Tyson, and maybe some other people too that I can't think of at the moment. But that's a lot of brow bossing. Now, the main reason why he has this exposed, which it shouldn't be exposed that much, is because his nasal bridge, right, where his nasion ends at, is really low set. So if his nasal bridge was a bit higher set, like if his nasal bridge was a little bit higher set, it would have been a little bit better. So if his nasal bridge was like right here, it wouldn't be as exposed as much. And another thing too is his forehead, like I said, it was recessed back, so it kind of pulls back a little bit too far. And if his forehead wasn't like that and it was kind of like this, and his nasal bridge was higher set like this, you wouldn't see too much exposure right here. Now there'll still be a little bit of brow bossing right here, but not too much to where it will be that noticeable. But having this much brow bossing is just looks a little bit too Neanderthalic, caveman like, and it's something that is not ideal at all. And yeah, so that's pretty much it that I need to show y'all from this view right here that I just had to explain. His gonial angle is 116 degrees. This gonial angle is extremely sharp, like very, very sharp. And 116 degrees is almost kind of like box-like type of sharp jawline. And this is something that you do want to have. It's almost kind of like a Brad Pitt type of jawline right here. And yeah, this is going to be a tier 1. And you usually want to have a very sharp jawline. It just looks very masculinized, but you don't want it to be too sharp to where it literally looks like a 90-degree angle. You want it to have a little bit of somewhat of a tilt to it, like he does. So yeah, his nasal-facial angle gets a tier 5, 25 degrees. And 25 degrees is very short. What this leads to is facial flatness. And if you have a lot of facial flatness, and yeah, if you have a lot of facial flatness, this makes the face just appear too flat and not too forwardly progressed or forwardly protrusive. And this is due to his nose not being very projected. If he had more of a projected nose, this will kind of supplement that. And yeah, so his chin is projected, as you can clearly see, but his nose is not very projected. So having a projected nose can help you with a plethora of measurements from the side view profile. And yeah, so his nasal projection is one of his biggest flaws in the side view profile. All right, so the nasal mental angle is a tier 6. So this is a little bit different. It's a little bit of like the exterior version of the nasal frontal angle, or the nasal facial angle, I mean. So this is like the exterior version of the nasal facial angle. And usually you want to get around the 130 range. His is at 139. So it kind of like deciphers a little bit far off from it. And he will get a tier 6 for it. So like I said again, facial flatness. And the main thing with this is the nasal protrusion. So if he did have a more protrusive nose, then that will kind of help supplement for the facial flatness that he has going on. And it's not that he has facial flatness from, you know, a very flat maxilla or something like that. Actually, his facial convexity isn't really that bad. It's just when you take into account the nasal protrusion, and is not is the angle is just not acute enough. It doesn't come down to too much. So when you have an angle this wide, it doesn't look very attractive. So like I said again, the nasal protrusion is one of the main problems that he has in the side view profile. All right, so for his lip measurements, he did pretty well. I'm not gonna lie. Most people can't even pass lip measurements, believe it or not. And usually these lip measurements are intended for Caucasian people, but other ethnic groups can pass these lip measurements, to be believe it or not. And yeah, so we are going to see what he did for these lip measurements. And I believe we got a tier 1 for every one of them, as you guys can see. So for all the 4 lip measurements, he got a tier 1. So we're gonna start with the Ricketts E line. He got a tier 1 because the bottom lip comes close to the tangent line, then the upper lip, and it should be half the distance of the upper lip, which it is. And another thing too is I noticed that his chin projection is helping a whole lot. So having a very protrusive chin can help with the lip measurements, which he does have. So the bottom lip is supposed to touch the tangent line, which it does. And this is going from the upper lip down to the chin, and the bottom lip should align between the upper lip and the chin. And the alignment is good. The S line goes from the tip of the nostril going all the way down to the chin. And what is to be seen is that the upper lip and the bottom lip is actually supposed to touch the line. It shouldn't go ahead of the line, and it shouldn't go behind the line. It should be in line with the line. So everything should kind of line up together, which it does. And then his burstal line, the upper lip is supposed to be ahead of the bottom lip, but not too far out. And his does not at, I can't remember what I got as a percentage, but his doesn't go past way too much. But yeah, so all his lip measurements were really good. Honestly, his lip alignments were perfect. So this is probably his biggest plus, honestly speaking, other than his age and him kind of like, you know, not looking too old for his age. Like I said, he was 55. I mean, the lip measurements, he passed it flawlessly. All right, so the Z angle, this is another lip measurement. He gets at 86 degrees. So it's going from the Frankfurt plane angle. And another thing from the Frankfurt plane angle is from the top of that eardrum going all the way below the orbital rims. And then that is being intersected by the tangent line that's going from the chin all the way up to either the bottom lip or the upper lip, whatever lip is more protrusive. It should be either the upper lip or the bottom and the upper lip should align with it. Really, the upper and bottom lip should align with that line, and then is going to kind of like intersect between each other. So that's how the angle is formed. And he gets 86. So now 86, what that means is that his lips are very retrusive, and anything above 80 degrees is retrusive lips. So if you was to look at him, whether it's the front or the side, his lips wouldn't be very pronounced. So that's another thing too, is even though his lips are aligned very well, his lips are not very pronounced. So you want to have somewhat of a pronounced lips, and you want that to be somewhere between 70 to 80. 70 to 80 is perfectly normal. And then this is the last measurement that I'm going to do for this video. So it is the rules of the fifths. So if you divide the face by fives, it should be even. And for his, it is not at all. And another thing too is that the nose is actually supposed to line with the inner canthus, which it doesn't. He does have a pretty wide nose. And then his ears are not supposed to drift off too far off, and the ears actually do drift off a little bit too far off, and it could be because of where his cheekbone ends. Usually when your cheekbone ends, that's when your ear protrusion really starts, and like I said, he does have very wide cheekbones, so that could possibly be one of the culprits to why his ears are a little bit wider. And the mouth as well, it's supposed to be within the inner iris of the eyes, and it is a little bit past that, going near the pupils of his eyes. And yeah, so the mouth is probably the closest one to ideal, but everything else is not ideal. So yeah, so you want your face to be kind of equal with all fifths. And the only celebrity that I can think of at the moment, I got some other celebrities too that had equal fifths as well, but the main celebrity that really had equal fifths and also equal thirds too was Jennifer Lopez. So that is just an example of a celebrity that had very equalized facial proportions. So yeah, so if you want to get your face rated, make sure to hit me down in the description. My link, or I might have a link, or my IG will be down in the description. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. And if you have any questions, make sure to comment down below. And I'm out. Peace.